Hello, it's Dr. Astar Bear, and this class every week, Heart Rhythm Meditation. Tonight, I want to feature, before we begin, I want to feature a piece of art made by one of my children. It's my 13-year-old non-binary child, and they made this shirt for me right here. See this? This is a animal that's a horse and an eagle and a person. It's called a mahorsigal. So enjoy. uh, Heart rhythm meditation comes out of Sufism, particularly Sufism of Hazrat Inayat Khan, who was an Indian Sufi master who taught in the West in the early 20th century. There's a lot of different methods of meditation that come out of Sufism. So it's not the only one by any means, but it's one that I've practiced and taught for many years. And one of the things that's a little bit different about this kind of meditation uh, is there's a lot of focus on the breath and a lot of development of the breath. We're really trying to make the breath optimal or ideal. So, what does that mean? Well, when you practice this style of meditation, you're like pretty much every style, you're going to be sitting, with an upright yet relaxed posture. This is important because you want your energy to be up, right? If you lay down, you're sending a physiological signal to yourself that says sleepy time, right? Um, so meditation is different from sleep, right? We need sleep, we need rest, but that's not the purpose of meditation because when you sleep, you're not conscious of what's happening, right? You're the link between the activity of the unconscious mind, the emotions, and your conscious mind is not very present, right? Like you might remember a little something from the time that you're asleep, but not a whole lot, right? And during deep sleep, you're not aware of anything, right? So um, we don't. That's not what we want, right? We want to. Meditation is about self-discovery, self-knowledge. It's about experiencing um, energy and all of the different levels of the self, about knowing who you are and also what is the nature of the life outside of you, right? What is the relationship between inside and outside, right? Um, so that in order to explore that, we have to be aware, right? We have to be conscious. Okay, so we want the posture to be upright to give us that energy, and yet we want to be relaxed, right? Because meditation is also about opening yourself, right? Um, and we don't want to be, under such tension that we like close ourselves down in some way, right? So nice upright posture, right? Your head is in line. A lot of times we're doing something, or like I'm sitting at a computer right now. My tendency is to want to like go forward and type on a keyboard or whatever, right? So it's a good idea to sort of sit back just to counter that tendency, right? All right. So we're gonna make 5 different interventions into the breath. Okay. We're gonna try and make the breath deep when we breathe. Okay. So focused on the abdominal region. This is called diaphragmatic breathing or abdominal breathing. And it just means very simple, right? That your belly should expand as you breathe in, and it should contract as you breathe out, right? So, what we often do that is not ideal is we often do just thoracic breathing. So that is chest breathing, right up in the chest, and this it has a function, right? There's different ways that we can breathe. That's good, but thoracic breathing tends to trigger that part of our autonomous nervous system, which is the stress response, the fight or flight response. Okay. So, we we bring the breath up here as like it's part of like physiological arousal, right? Like, fear, stress, aggression, all of these things arouse us physiologically. Um, I don't mean sexual arousal. I mean, I mean just any kind of physiological arousal, right? Um, and then that gets sort of stuck on. We're like we're in this fight or flight response kind of all the time, right? And it's not like the ultimate version of it. It's a lower grade version of it. But that's one of the big problems of modern life, right? Is that we're always sort of stressed. So we have anxiety, or we don't want to deal, it's overwhelming, we get depressed, right? All of these very, very common responses to the stress of modern life. So what can we do, right? Well, we can shift our breathing down into our bellies. Okay, so this is described in a lot of different traditions. Um, the one I like, studied Tai Chi for many years, and in Tai Chi, they say, let your chi sink down to your dantian. I like that because it's so mysterious. Chi sinking to your dantian. Right? So this means, you let your belly be soft, and your belly expands and contracts, a natural style of breathing, right? So when you do this, you're you're letting your energy sink down lower in your body, right? So if your breathing is up here, your energy is up here, right? We spend a lot of time with our energy right up here, right? What are we seeing, right? We're focused on that, right? um, what information are we taking in, with our, what is our mental activity. Okay, so all of this brings our energy up here. We want to bring it down. This is so part of helping us to relax and de-stress. Okay, so deep breathing, very important. Second thing, making the breathing slow. Um, our breath rate is normally maybe 20 breaths a minute, something like that, right? When we're not paying attention to it. And so that means we take a breath in and out, maybe about every 3 seconds or so, something like that. Um, and we're going to slow that down, right? What's the purpose of that? If you slow down your breathing, you are slowing down one of the fundamental rhythms that you have. Like if you sit with your eyes closed, how do you know how much time is passing, right? Um, how do you have an unconscious sense of that, right? Your heartbeat and your breath are very fundamental clocks that you have, right? It's always with you, right? As long as you're alive. Um, I mean, I assume you guys are alive right now, right? I mean, if you are, then your heart is beating and you're breathing. So, right, unless you're a different kind of being than I'm aware of. So by slowing this down, you slow down your rhythm. And this has a very powerful effect, right? Slowing down the rhythm of your body. So first of all, also triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, right? This is the relaxation response, the opposite of the fight or flight response. So that's important. Um, and it also has this effect on slowing down your thoughts, even slowing down your feelings. Um, and this can be very relaxing because one of the things that happens when we get anxious is our thoughts start racing, right? And they kind of race around in circles, right? Um, and a lot of people tell me, "Oh, I'd love to be able to meditate, but I can't because my mind is going too fast. That monkey mind." Um, so, yeah, I mean, we all do, right? Those of us who spend a lot of time meditating don't have some different kind of mind. I mean, we all have the same kind of mind, right? Your mind wants to think thoughts. That's what it does after all, right? So, um, what can you do about that? Well, you can slow down your breath. You're not working on your mind directly. It doesn't work to tell your mind, stop that. Stop all that thinking and stop all that anxiety. It doesn't work. Um, Your mind is like, no, I'm not going to stop it. I'm gonna do what I do. So it's better to work with your mind indirectly, right? Just say, okay, mind, look, I'm gonna give you something to do, and what are you gonna do right now? You're gonna focus on the breath. Okay, we are gonna work together to change our breath from what it is normally, what it is unconsciously. Whenever you make something conscious, you're you're using your mind, right? So your mind likes to have a task. So you give it a task that is good for you, right? That is going to be helpful. Um, okay, so deep, slow. Now, we also want to make the breath rhythmic. So, very, very common for our breath to be arrhythmic. Now, what does that mean, right? A rhythm is a repeated pattern of some kind. Um, and your breath falls into repeated patterns, but we want this pattern to be of a certain kind. Okay, we want there to be an even rhythm, so that is that the inhalation and the exhalation are the same length and intensity, right? Now, why is that important? um, well, spiritually, the breath is represents life, right? The breath represents energy. Um, the word for breath and the word for life, energy, right? All these things is often the same in spiritual traditions, like in the Vedantic tradition, Hinduism. It's prana, right? So prana means breath, and also means energy. Um, using the same word signifies that it's the same thing, right? um, we don't have that in English exactly, right? We don't have that kind of influence upon the language of spiritual traditions. Okay, so what we would like, right, is if there's energy that happens on the inhalation, right, that is receiving energy, and there's energy that happens on the exhalation, that is radiating or projecting energy. We would like those two to be even, right? I hope that makes sense why we would want that, right? If we are taking in more than we are expressing, right? More than we are giving back, you could say, right? Um, then it's going to lead to a certain kind of dissatisfaction. We want to express ourselves. We want to expression is also influence. It's change. You're projecting your energy and your desires out into the world with your breath. Um, so we want that to be you know even. We want that to be happening. We want that energetic exchange to be happening. Um, and if your exhalation is more powerful or more intense or longer or so forth, right? If you are giving out more than you are taking in, it's easy to get burned out, right? Energetically, that's to get kind of exhausted. So we want to be, first of all, become aware. Are there these imbalances? Now, this is hard to do because our breath is normally, unconscious, right? How do you know what's happening with it if you're not conscious of it? And then the minute you become conscious of it, well, usually you change it, especially if you're being told, like you are now, that you're supposed to do it a certain way, right? So, this is the challenge. So, all right, that aside, right? What are we trying to do? Make the breath deep, make it slow, make it rhythmic. So another aspect of rhythmic is no interruptions. Okay, no times where your breath is hung up, no times where you stop. Okay, very, very common to unconsciously hold your breath at some part of the breathing rhythm. So we don't want to do that. We want the breath to just flow like a river. Okay. Um, Now, there's all kinds of physiological reasons for this, right? This is very healthy for your heart. It produces this beneficial pattern in heart rate variability. That is, your heart. When you're healthy, right? A healthy heart uh, slows down and speeds up on a beat to beat level, right? So even if your heart rate is kind of on average like 60 or 70 or whatever it is, right? Um, your heart is going to be speeding up and slowing down, and that is good, right? So this is called heart rate variability. Um, having heart rate variability, having your heart slowing down and speeding up, is associated with good health outcomes, right? Having low heart rate variability is associated with mortality, with negative health outcomes, right? You name it, right? Anything you can think of that's negative for your heart, for your health. Low heart rate variability is correlated with that. So, it's a thing that doctors look at, right? They want to know, how's your heart rate variability, right? So by doing this style of breathing, you are, engaging the relaxation response, right? Shifting away from stress, de-stressing. You are giving yourself a healthier pattern of heart rate variability. Um, that's the importance of this, just on a physical level, right? Energetically and spiritually, you're balancing yourself. You're giving yourself time to understand this very primary thing that's happening, right? Every moment that we're breathing, we are exchanging energy with the rest of the universe. Wow, what a thing, right? That's amazing. Are we gonna are we gonna let that go without examining it? I mean, come on, let's understand what's happening here, right? Um, so by making your breath slower, you also have more time to appreciate it, more time to understand it, right? If you breathe in, okay, what did that take, a second or something? I mean, how much time do I have to understand what's happening there, right? So we make the breath slower. We have more time to understand, okay, what is this energy that I'm taking in as I breathe? How does it change? How does it differ at the very beginning of the inhalation versus the middle versus the end? Right? You might start to notice that your breath, when you take a long, slow inhalation, your breath builds in power, right? So, this is one of the things we want to study, right? We want to learn, what is this power in the breath? Um, and the same on the exhalation, right? What is the energy at the beginning of the exhalation, the middle of the exhalation, the end of the exhalation? Okay. Um, all right. Now, so I've gone through three elements of the breath, right? And I know that maybe this is different from what you've been taught, maybe other styles of meditation. Don't focus so much on this. They might just say, pay attention to your breath, or pay attention to body sensations or something like this, right? So it's more detailed. I know that. Um, and that's sort of the price of admission to this style of meditation, right? Um, but this can be good because, again, one of the big challenges, there are styles of meditation that are very easy to learn because there's not a whole lot of instruction, right? Um, this doesn't give much for your mind to do, right? Um, if like in the Zen tradition, for example, they're like, I have in some parts of it, they have a very basic approach, right? Like, just sit, just sit. Here's a cushion, sit on it, be quiet, right? That's the instruction, um, maybe they'll say a little bit more, okay, sit in this manner or whatever, right? So that's a very minimalist instruction, right? They're not telling you to do anything to your breath. um, what's going to happen if you sit long enough? um, well, I can tell you, right? I've done this. You sit long enough, you're going to get tired of breathing up in your chest. You're going to start breathing more naturally down in your belly. um, that'll happen if you sit for a while. So the point of doing this, right, is, well, let's make that happen a little quicker. Let's let's go right to the relaxation response, right? um, okay, I've got a comment here. Thank you for your comment. It's, yeah, meditation and focusing on my breathing helps me gain a better imagination after I'm done. Very good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Um, this is stuff where it's like, I don't want you to believe what I'm saying, right? That's not what this is about. I want you to try it out and see what it does for you, right? If it doesn't work for you, okay, that's fine. I don't, no hard feelings. If it works for you, great. All I'm saying is this is something that's worked very well for me. Um, so I don't want to go beyond like my own experience with this, right? I think that's important, because I can't speak to your experience. I can only speak about my own. Um, all right, so the next element that we want is to make the breath bigger than it normally is. Okay, so we call this the full breath, and normally we only use a very small portion of our lung capacity. It's called our vital capacity. So we want to use more than that, right? We want to really work on our breathing, understand all of the muscles. There's a lot of muscles that can come into play in the breathing apparatus, right? The breathing mechanism. So your abdominal muscles are involved, your intercostal muscle. I mean, the breathing should go from your collarbone all the way to your hips to your collarbone, like that. That's the region, right? Um, so by making our breath bigger and fuller, the key there is really working on the exhalation, really squeezing your abdominal muscles, squeezing out all the breath as you breathe out. And each time you try to go a little bit further than you did before, and it's going to feel like work. It's going to feel like way more work than you normally put into breathing. Okay. You're going to feel like you're just really trying to ride this kind of train, right? Um, so this is how you work and you develop the full breath, right? Now, what's the point of this? Why, right? Why put all this work into breathing when we could just, it could be unconscious. We could put zero work into it, right? Um, well, the point is, right, if breath is life, if breath is energy, what are we doing here? We want more breath, more life, more energy, right? I mean, if we're trying to really discover ourselves, we need energy for that, right? We need courage for that. I mean, we're exploring parts of ourselves that are unknown, and the unknown is always difficult. It's always scary. Uh, so we need energy for that, right? There's going to be all kinds of resistance. Right? There's going to be parts of ourselves that do not want to be discovered, right? That that don't want to be known, that don't want to be explored. Um, and that so we need that energy in order to help us to revitalize ourselves, and to give ourselves the strength that we need to deal with. Look, it's not going to be all chocolates and rainbows in your inner world, right? You're going to encounter some difficult stuff. That I can 100% guarantee that for you, right? Like, I hope there are going to be some unicorns and rainbows along the way. There's amazing, lovely things that happen in meditation, but there's also difficulty. There's also challenge. There's fear is going to come up. Unresolved emotions are going to surface. That's just the reality, right? So we need if the breath is strong, if the breath is full, then you have the energy to carry yourself through that, right? Um, because there's always something on the other side, right? Um, and you can get through it a lot quicker. I'm going to be honest with you, right? You can get through it a lot quicker, um, if you're conscious of it and if you work with your breath on the issues that come up. Okay, so slow, uh, deep, slow, rhythmic, full. Okay, and the last element, fifth element, is heart centered. Okay, so heart centered means you're focusing your breath on your emotional and spiritual center. Okay, your heart chakra, and we're going to do that by using the heartbeat. Um, so this is difficult. Not everyone can do this right away. You can place a hand or both hands on your heart to help you, because where your hands go, your attention goes as well. Um, sometimes having that there, it makes it easier to feel. You can press with your fingertips to get that sensation of the pulse in the fingertips. You can put one hand on and then hook the other one around in order to feel your pulse like this. Okay, do it like this. So those are different devices. Some people can feel it without that, and if so, that's fine, right? These are just tips. Okay, so let's try this out. I know I'm talking for a little while here, giving you the background. Um, let's try it out together. All right. So you sit up straight, nice upright posture. Tune into your breathing. Make your breath deep, slow, rhythmic, full, and heart centered. Now, maybe you don't feel like you've gotten every part of this. We usually teach this whole method over time, one step at a time, and I'm giving you the whole thing in one shot, right? Which I do every week. So you're struggling to follow that. And just do what you can, right? Do whatever you remember from what I said. Belly expands as you breathe in, belly contracts as you breathe out. Breathing out and squeezing the abdominal muscles, breathing out all of that stale air that normally gets kept in your lungs. Breathing out more, really trying to empty yourself. And then breathing in, but still controlling the breath on the inhalation. You're going to take a much bigger inhalation than you normally take. And you repeat that cycle again. Look for your heartbeat now. I try pressing with your fingertips on your breastbone or placing the palm flat on your chest. This is adding to the focus on your heart center, your heart chakra. And just imagine that your breath is fueling your heart center. That is, your breath is revitalizing you physically, but also mentally, also emotionally, right? Your breath is helping your heart to come alive. The Sufis consider the heart to be the center that holds all the other centers. All right. So the link between the spiritual world and the physical world. So very, very important. You're energizing your heart center with your breath. Now, if you can feel your heartbeat, bring that into rhythm with your breath. So you have the same number of beats on the inhalation as you do on the exhalation. You might take, for example, 8 beats in and 8 beats out. That number is not magical, so you can change it if you'd like. Don't pick something that you can't maintain, but at the same time, you want to push yourself, right? So you do want to be working on your breath. That is, trying to make your breath bigger, all right? So there may be a struggle here, okay? And it's up to you to tune that, right? Because you still want to be relaxed, right? You don't want to be you don't want to get tense in your struggle, right? But Um, you want to breathe more than you normally do, a lot more. All right. I hope you can. We'll end our little practice session there. I hope you can feel this working to some extent. Um, feel free to keep on practicing, of course, while I'm talking. I mean, that's an option that you have at any time, of course. So I want to just talk a little bit about some philosophical stuff, some philosophical concepts here. Just kind of following up on the class last time. Now I know you guys might be watching this. This might be your first time watching this, so you don't have to have seen the last one by any means. But what we were talking about last week was the discovery of the ideal, right? So this means the what you consider to be ideal, and also that is important to you, right? That you find captivating, that matters to you, um, and the Sufis place a huge importance on this and consider this to be really, it's really like your version of God. It's your version of the divine. It's your version of your understanding of perfection. I mean, that's what ideal is, right? Ideal means perfect, Uh, so, a lot of times this is given a kind of negative spin in our culture, right? Like, to say a person is idealistic, which is not entirely positive necessarily, right? It's like, oh, you're a dreamer, you're an idealist, and the Sufis are like, yeah, the ideal is not of this world, because the world's limited, you know. The world is not ideal. I mean, look around, it's obvious, right? So, what what is that then? Why do we want to cultivate within ourselves this sense of the perfect? And the answer is because that's our true nature. Our on a soul level, right? On a fundamental level, we are unlimited. We are infinite. We are perfect, right? That is the connection between the human being and God, the universe, reality, the one, whatever you want to call it, right? And what you call it doesn't really matter, right? Because spiritual seekers, regardless of their culture or history or sect or religion or whatever they come from, invariably describe the nature of reality as one, right? As unity, as as perfect, as unlimited, right? So how do we wrap our minds around this, right? We want to explore this, we want to experience this, right? We can't really grasp it mentally, right? Our minds are just too limited a faculty, right? Our minds can conceive, are good at details, they're good at patterns, they're good at, right? That's what our minds are good at. They're not good at stuff they're not good at understanding perfection or the unlimited, right? Those are just concepts, you know. What we want is an experience of that, right? Let me give you a couple of quotes here from Hazrat Inayat Khan. Um, so he has a lot to say about the ideal. He has a set of aphorisms and sayings. So here's one of his sayings. Okay, my beloved ideal, when I was looking for thee on the earth, wert thou not laughing at me in heaven? Right. So this is what we do. Like when the ideal gets awakened, that when that sense of perfection gets awakened, right? Like so. And what do I mean by that way? I mean, how could a person be, right? We often put our ideals on another person, right? A person that we admire. We say, oh, I would so much love to be that way, right? Uh, like Christians sometimes say, "What would Jesus do?" You know, well, yeah, the idealism in that statement is fantastic. What would Jesus do? Oh my God, right? I mean, um, that's a very idealistic statement, right? To think that you could understand what Jesus might do in this situation, right? Um, so the ideal is not of this world, but and yet we're very drawn to it. I mean, a person who has a strong idealism, he's going to be incredibly interesting, right? Incredibly magnetic. Why is that, right? Um, because they are expressing something that we're all interested in, right? They're expressing in some way, right? In some limited way, the longing for perfection that we all have, right? That's part of being human. So, what is this though, right? I mean, the ideal cannot exist in life, and yet we long for it, right? Um, what is what do we make of this, right? So here's another quote, right? My ideal, I imagine at moments that we are playing seesaw. When I rise up, thou goest down below my feet. When I go down, thou risest above my head. So there's this right, this up and down kind of movement here, right? Now, how about this one? The one who can live up to their ideal is the king of life. Wow, right? So it's very, very important because the ideal gives us a compass. Like what is the point of life? I mean, there's so many limitations. There's so many things we want but feel we can't have, or we're always limited, right? Time, energy, money, etc. Right? Um, we want love, but we're disappointed in love. We want a person to accept us fully, understand us fully, right? um, we have enormous idealism around relationships. I mean, that one is sort of cultural, at least in the US context, right? We have the idea that you find your soulmate and you live happily ever after, right? That's an incredibly idealistic view of relationships, right? So the what the Sufis say is like it's not good if you accept an ideal that's like put upon you from the outside, right? That's not good. But that's not because that's not real. You want something that comes from you, right? That you feel is important. Maybe it's shared by the culture, maybe it's supported by the culture, maybe not, right? But that's not the primary thing, right? The primary thing is not, is it widely understood? The primary thing is that you care about it, right? Because again, something that's given to you by somebody else, something that other people say you should believe in, it's not real. It's dead. We want living spirituality, we want living faith, right? Not rule following. All right. Here's another quote. A human being is pulled from four sides in life: by nature, circumstances, law, and the ideal. I like that one. Right? But you see that, like, the first three things that are mentioned, right? Nature, circumstances, law, these are all external things, right? Um, we have to follow the law, right? Okay, circumstances, well, you don't get to choose those, right? Nature, how much control do you have over nature? These are things that are, imposed on you from the outside. But your ideal, that comes from you, right? That is a very authentic, uh, like I say, longing for perfection, expression of that. Okay. Now, here's the thing about having ideals. So the benefit of it is you are making you're making the perfect or the infinite comprehensible to yourself, right? Um, like I study martial arts. I've done lots of different kinds of martial arts. Boxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, judo. For many years, I did tai chi, um, and I always had this so strongly, right? Like the kind of perfect move or the perfect execution of a technique or the perfect timing, the perfect, you know, blend between being relaxed and being fast, or being, um, and so, however that ideal manifests for you, right? That's what I'm interested in. Again, it's not about, you don't have to have mine, right? No two people are going to share exactly the same ideal, right? There's going to be the way, even if it's in the same kind of area of interest, yours is going to be your own, right? It's going to be different from mine. And that's good, because we're all unique individuals, which we celebrate, right? I mean, that's good that we're all different. Um, so the point is, right, when you have this, you have a kind of compass, because, and by the way, this is a lot of the reason why we don't want to let ourselves get into it that much. Sometimes we don't even want to let ourselves know, uh, excuse me, that we even have an ideal, because it immediately, the next question is, what are you doing about it, right? Like, you want to do the perfect move. Well, how much are you training for that, right? um, you want to create a better world, maybe through, activism or social change. What are you doing about it, right? That's the next question. And that's a hard question, this is a hard question, because an ideal is a lot to live up to, right? Um, and the higher the ideal, the greater the aspiration. Um, and so it's like, oh my God, it's like you're giving yourself an immense challenge there, um, and that takes inner strength, just to come face to face with it, just to realize what it is, takes a lot of strength. Um, but we don't want to shrink from this, right? We want to, um, we strength and courage are required on the spiritual path. That's just the way it is, right? So we want to embrace the challenge, And so last week we got into this. How do we? What are the, like, tactics? What are the techniques? Okay, so it's one thing to listen to what I'm saying, whatever, philosophically, but we want some way of actually putting this into action. All right. So what I suggested is, you want to choose a word, short word, that has some significance to you, that connects you either to that ideal, or to what you consider to be the highest, the greatest, right? Um, the most sacred, the most authentic, the most real, right? Um, that is your longing, that that connects you to that sense of perfection. Okay, you choose a word, and I hope I'm not tossing this off too blithely. Like, it's a it's a good practice to think about, what is that word, and how does it connect, and right, all this stuff. It might just occur to you spontaneously, right, as you sit, as you breathe, as you tune into your heart. Maybe a word comes to mind, right? Maybe it pops into your head from nowhere. That happens, right? Go with it. All right. So you take this word, you place it on your heartbeat, and then as you're breathing, right, and doing all the other things that I mentioned, right, that deep, slow, rhythmic, heart-centered, full, all that stuff, right? Um, you're using this word to keep track of the number of beats. Okay. And then using your mind, if you have any mental bandwidth left over here after doing all the other stuff I'm telling you to do, um, then you're using that to really focus, right? What is my ideal? Let me just allow that to bloom within my heart, and really experience it, understand it, um, get into the energy of it. All right. Um, so let's try that. Okay. Let's do another little session of practice. Take a few minutes and just, again, tune into your breath. Take this sacred word. You could even use a phrase. Place that on your heartbeat so that it feels like your heart is your heart as it beats is repeating that word, that sacred word. Feel how this ideal lifts you up, gives you hope and direction, that it gives you a compass, it gives you something to it's like a tower that rises out of the plain, right? You can orient yourself relative to that as long as you can see it. Now try to resist the temptation to get too into the details of it, right? That's that mental level again, right? You don't want the details, you want the energy, right? If you find yourself getting hung up in thoughts or anxieties or details or whatever, you just return the focus to your the center of your chest, right? To your heart center. Your physical heart is right there beating. That's helpful, right? That's bringing your attention there. You're counting the beats of your heart. You're breathing more deeply, more slowly, more rhythmically, more fully than you normally do. You're making your breath heart centered. All right. So hopefully you get a sense of that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the what happens next, right? So there's the discovery of this ideal, and of course, I don't know where you guys are at with this, right? Maybe you're feeling this very strongly. Maybe this is something you've felt a lot in your life. I don't know. Um, but the reality of having an ideal is that it goes hand in hand with disappointment. Um, there's just no two ways about that. It's like when you set the bar really high, it's very hard to get over, right? I mean, and when you set it infinitely high, it's like it's impossible to get over, right? So, you, um, again, what's the point? Well, I mean, this is the human condition, right? We are both limited beings and unlimited beings. So we have that tension is always inside of us, um, we why do we have longing? Why are we so interested in perfection? Well, we know on some level that that is who we truly are. Our souls and spirits are unlimited. That is true. Um, so, but at the same time, we're physical beings, right? We have physical bodies, we have minds, we have emotions. We're also limited. So we're going to be in the flow of that tension, right? Having an ideal opens you to disappointment. Okay. Um, you if you put that ideal on another person, they are going to fall short, right? You put it on yourself, you are going to fall short. That's the thing. Like so when I was I'll continue with my martial arts analogy. When I was I, I'd done Tai Chi for many years, and then I picked up a new martial art, which is judo. Um, and I mean, talk about the opposite kind of martial art. Tai Chi is known as you do these moves right on in the air and whatever, right? It's very flowing. Judo is like a fight. You're there a gi and whatever, and you grab somebody by the collar and you try and throw them down, and they're doing the same to you. Um, Very different energy, Um, and so I, um, you always start at the beginning, right? So I started judo like everybody starts at a white belt. But I came in with this, I had done martial arts for a long time, right? And so I was like, had a really high expectations for myself, like I wasn't like, oh, I'm a white belt, I'll get thrown all the time and that's cool. It was like, no, that's not the expectation I had for myself, right? I was like, what is that perfect move, right? Um, and this actually, weirdly enough, I came up with a throw. I'd never been taught it. I came up with it, and and it happened for me like a handful of times where I just executed this move perfectly. It was amazing, right? I was like, how did that even happen? I don't know. I tried to analyze it later. I was like, what was the move I actually did? I mean, I know it worked. That's great, um, but of course, then it doesn't. Nothing works all the time, And anyway, whatever. The point is, right? By having an ideal, you open yourself to disappointment, right? Um, here's husband and I Khan again said, um, no person living on earth can come up to your ideal except some hero of a story of the past. Right? You know, if you know a person, you know that they're limited. Especially if you know them well. It's like no person is a hero to their valet. That's sort of that old saying, right? Um, so a person is gonna, is gonna disappoint you, right? Um, so um, you're going to your ideal is going to be shattered. That's the So one of Hazrat Icon's most famous kind of sayings about this is he says, "Shatter your ideal on the rock of truth." Right. So what does this mean, right? I mean, I've been talking all about how important the ideal is. Now you're saying shatter it. What I mean, what is going on here, right? um, Well, the reality is life is going to shatter it. Um, you're going to pursue your ideal, and just because you're idealistic, just because you have a sense of what is perfect, doesn't mean that you can't fail, right? You can still fail, and sometimes that happens, and then you go, "Oh, what happened? This is awful. Oh, I feel so disappointed." And I thought I could do the impossible and I failed and it didn't work out. And you know, you you go through that, it's like highs and lows, right? Like, yes, I can, right? That feeling that lifts you up, right? That idealism. And then, oh, it didn't go as I hoped, or maybe you could even succeed, but it still doesn't quite measure up, right? Um, so this shattering of the ideal is like a very common. It goes hand in hand with it. Um, in a Buddhist tradition, they have a very interesting little saying about this, or kind of koan about this, right? Which is, um, if you meet a Buddha on the road, kill him. Right? I think it's describing that same idea, right? So what is Buddha, right? The Buddha is meant as this ideal in human form, right? And what is going to happen, right? That you're going to be disappointed by that, right? That's what the killing means, right? Metaphorically, right? Uh, but that is a natural part of this process. And how do you put this back together, right? How do you maintain that hope, that optimism, that longing for perfection, even as you have been disappointed, right? Well, that takes you to another level of strength, another level of courage, right? To be able to try again, knowing that you've failed before. Um, that's stronger, that's more real, right? Um, and so we're driven by this, right? By our own longing to make the ideal real in some way, right? And the way it's going to become real in ourselves, right? That's the kind of where we're going to get to with this, right? um, you know, having a sense of your own unlimited nature does not turn you immediately into, a superhuman person who can shoot lasers out of their eyes or whatever, right? That's not how this works. Um, so it it gives you great benefit, right? There's a lot to be said for the discovery of the ideal, but it doesn't mean that you can immediately create it in life, right? There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be reversals. There's going to be times where it doesn't work out, And can you hold that ideal even under that shattering, right? Can you can you put that back together? Um, I'll tell you another little story about this from myself. Um, I had worked as a professor for 4 years. I started my career in 2001. I worked at community colleges uh, from 2001 to 2009, and at that point, I left and became the executive director for this nonprofit organization. So founded by my father and stepmother, focused on meditation and spiritual retreats and so on. So and I worked there for 5 years. Um, Left academia behind. I had tenure and whatever, and I was following this ideal. I was like, I enjoy teaching college. I think I'm good at it. It's uh, but it doesn't feel like what I'm meant to do on some level. I was teaching statistics. And I'm like, well, I think I'm a pretty good statistics teacher, but there's lots of good statistics teachers, right? Who can take this organization and build this and bring it to the next level, right? That's what I felt really called to do, right? So I took a big risk, working in a small nonprofit, um, and needing to increase the revenue, in order to be successful and stuff. And we did this, right? Um, Doubled the size of the organization, the donations, the revenue, all this stuff went up massively. And then it started to kind of diverge, right? We started to become clear that we had different visions of the organization, right? Me, the one who's, like the administrative kind of leader, right? And the founders. And this was incredibly difficult, right? I'll just say, this is the greatest shattering of my life. I mean, it took me, I ended up, leaving the organization, and, we split over this, this difference of like, what could or should this organization be, right? What is the direction that it's going to take? So I don't want to cast any blame here, right? That's not what this is about. It's just about, this happens, when you pursue an ideal, and especially it's a high ideal, you are going to face disappointment, you are going to face shattering, you are going to face the challenge of, what does that mean, right? I put so much faith into this and it didn't work out. I thought I would. I mean, I was lucky enough to then get another job teaching. um, Thank goodness for that, right? But it's not what I thought would happen, right? I thought that I would spend the rest of my life working for this organization. That's what I wanted, and so it was just a bitter disappointment, right? A huge challenge to my faith, you know, um, because we have this idea, right? Like, if I'm following, my sense of what is, sacred, what is good, right? What is even the kind of will of God or the universe, right? That we won't be tested, that we won't face challenges, that we won't fail. Um, and I mean, like, come on, we know on some level that's not true. There are no guarantees. Um, Good people fail all the time. I mean, that's the reality, right? But nonetheless, right? We like to have this sense, or we like to tell ourselves this fairy tale, that we like to be in this delusion that um, we won't fail. It's important to have that delusion, right? Because you wouldn't do you only do big things with the idea that you're going to be successful. So you have to have that. You have to have that confidence. You have to have a certain amount of self delusion in order to be confident. Um, so, right, how do we put ourselves back together when we face that shattering? That's inevitable, right? So, well, meditation can help a lot here too, right? Because you go within and experience the pain. You don't flee from it, right? You embrace it. You work with it. Is it going to take time? Yes, it'll take time. Um, the breath can help, right? The focus on the heart can help. All right. So we're out of time for tonight. We're here every week. Thank you guys so much. Those of you who joined the class live. If you got something from the class, I encourage you to visit my Patreon page. All of my patrons get access to a step-by-step class, which goes through the method in great detail, and just you have videos for each step of it. So rather than struggling to follow the whole thing like I went through it tonight, you get a step-by-step treatment. Um, and of course, I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're enjoying the class. So thanks again for watching this, and I'll be here next week. Take care.